Welcome back to Paranormal Perspective. I'm John Lorden, and joining me as always is...
Christy Arnhart.
This is the show where Christy does a bunch of research on a particular topic, and she tries to
Mhm.
pull me back from the brink of skepticism. Whoa, did you see her move around like that? That looked
Did it was
supernatural.
it was.
That was the proof. We finally
This
did
is
it.
too. It's all supernatural.
All right. What is the topic that we're talking about today, Christy?
Well, today we'll be discussing Edward Leeds Scullin and the Coral Castle that he built in Florida.
Edward Leeds Scullin. Okay, and the Coral Castle. I know a little bit about it. In a rare turn, Christy actually wanted me to know about the topic before we did today's episode. So she gave me
Oh
a
yeah.
little heads up. I was able to go do a little research on it, and I'm really interested to see where this is going because I think you guys are going to be surprised with my take on it. But we'll see. We'll see. All right, let me bring up the pictures here so we can take a look at this stuff together.
hmm I wish I could have had video, like good video.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Wait, is that Rod Serling on the right there?
No, that's Ed.
Okay.
Little bitty Ed. He's only 5 foot tall and 100 to 120 pounds.
Oh, okay.
So,
Okay.
so how did he build a castle and everything in it?
Supposedly alone, right?
Oh, completely alone. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And mostly at night.
Mostly at now. Why would you work at night if you're alone?
I think he didn't want people eavesdropping on what he was doing.
Hmm. Hmm. Okay. All right. This is Ed. This is the Coral Castle. It is in Florida
hmm
and
Do you want
made.
me to ask the question?
Oh yeah, I guess I do. Remind me how to do the show, Christy, because apparently can't remember.
Well, the question I came up with is, do
Yeah.
you think Ed had supernatural knowledge the rest of us don't?
Hmm. Did Ed have supernatural knowledge? Interesting question. Yes or no? Okay.
I have a lot. Yeah, I have a lot of questions about how this was built. And this is one that I've known about, for decades, and it has always been so interesting. I want to visit so bad. The Coral Castle's tale starts out as a love story, surprisingly enough. In the early 1900s, Ed was 26 years old and he was engaged to a 16-year-old girl. They had been engaged for just a little bit. Day before the wedding, she calls it off. Breaks Ed's heart. So he decides to pack up and move to America and try for a new start. So he sets off by boat and goes to New York. But unfortunately, when he got to New York, he came down with tuberculosis.
Ooh, geez.
Yeah. So to help his breathing, he went and moved to Florida.
Okay.
And he ended up, it was in the 1920s that he moved to Florida, I believe. And he was taken in by a family down there who helped nurse him back to health. And from what I've read, get him over the tuberculosis. Now, I didn't know without modern medicine that you could, but from what I looked at with bed rest, with antibiotics and things like that, it can be cleared out of your system. Now,
Okay.
the weird thing about this, though, is that Ed claimed he was able to cure his own tuberculosis with the use of magnets. He
Okay.
was very into it, magnets, electromagnetism, all of that stuff. And you have to understand he had a formal education as in grade school, and then that was it.
Okay.
Latvia was poor, his family was poor. There was a revolt, I believe, a civil war, something like that during that time. So things were not good. He ended up working with his family and learning the trade that his father had, which was being a stonemason.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, but he loved electricity and all that other stuff. So once he got well, the family that had took him in sold him an acre of land on the backside of their property. And he decided to build a monument to his lost love, the 16-year-old. His sweet 16 is what he called her. I didn't use her name because everywhere you go, there's a different name. It's like spelled different. It's totally different. So I figured we'll just leave it at sweet 16.
Yeah, and when I looked into this a little bit, also noticed that apparently some people think that the name is wrong. They think that,
Yeah.
there was two women in his life at one point, and they're really not sure which name it was or something. But yeah, I'm with you.
Hmm.
Okay, so we'll just refer to her as Sweet 16. And this is
Yeah.
just an example of some of the kind of stonework that we're talking about, just to give you guys some
Oh,
reference.
yes.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
mean, anyway, I'm going to get to this before I even start in with the pictures.
Mm-hmm.
So, according to the castle's website, coralcastle.com, I have a quote here. Ed, a stonemason, immediately began construction on a massive stone structure using nearby sedimentary rock called oolite. This stone is made up of tiny egg-shaped calcium carbonate particles fused together, and it forms a porous limestone rock that we
Mm-hmm.
call oolite. You can get it all over Florida. So, working alone and in secret, because it's not that he was a recluse, but he had friends, but he kind of kept to himself. He was quiet like that. He worked almost entirely at night by himself, cut and quarried and carved over 1,000 tons of rock into the shapes that he uses for the structure and for the different monuments and whatnot that he built. There's over 260 stones, with the heaviest one being 21 tons and the tallest standing 23 feet. All this work was done with what are called primitive tools. He would take parts from old cars and fashion them into tools that he would use to do this. Now, quarrying rock's not a hard thing to do. This is actually what he called his perpetual motion machine, I
Well,
believe
this
is what
is,
I
yeah, and this
oh
is
oh
where
it's yeah.
Well, yeah, this is where things get interesting, because the lore around it and the way that it's spoken about from, like, I don't want to say conspiracy theorists, but people that are leaning more towards the paranormal explanations is that kind of stuff. Um,
Mhm.
but there's another explanation, which is that he knew, kind of just the old ways of doing this stuff using leverage and pulley systems and things like that. I didn't even know this label was on here. I brought this picture up because I was trying to describe what you were talking about, because this to me just looks like mechanical pulleys. Like if you've ever been in a barn somewhere and looked
Mhm.
up, if it was, if they processed hay in there, you saw pulleys about this size up there, for winching things, raising them and moving them from one part of the barn to the other. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's interesting that, yeah, no, electromagnetic device. Okay. I guess it could
Well,
be.
it a lot of this stuff is still there. You
Yeah.
would think that if that was the type of machine he says it is, that all of this would have come out by now. But anyway, I'll get to all of this. I'm getting ahead of myself because I'm so excited. It's
Hmm.
like, how did he move these massive stones? How did he put them where they are? There was no machinery that people could see used, like, big heavy machinery, cranes, stuff like that. None of that was present. So, how did he quarry it, take it out, put it where it was supposed to go? When he was asked, he would say that he understood the laws of weight and leverage and that he had discovered the secrets of the pyramids. And we still argue today about how the pyramids were built. So,
Yeah, and that statement can mean so many things, right? Like we've
oh,
got the
yeah.
whole ancient aliens belief structure around that. And oh, is he talking about, he knew.
I had a stroke. Sorry.
Yeah, I saw that. You just went out, blacked out on me. Or is he talking? And I think there's enough other language in that quote to really make you lean the other way. That he's talking more about primitive tools and fulcrums and leverage and things of that nature.
Oh, yeah.
So
I mean, people say, oh, well, aliens helped him do it.
right.
They say that he used sound and sang to the stones and moved them from place to place, which is another ancient aliens theory that I have seen. And although it
Mm.
looked pretty neat, dear God. Now, all he used, as far as we know, was a basic block and tackle, a system of two or more pulleys with rope or cable threaded between them, and the tools that he created out of car parts. So we have pictures of this tripod, this mysterious tripod that everybody talks about. Everyone saw it around the property. They knew about it And they knew that he used it to move and lift stones, but nobody knew how it worked. And seriously, you look at these pictures, and how can that lift the tons of rock that they're saying that it did?
Yeah, yeah, and I think that is what helps launch this
Mm,
belief structure, and that's where it really, like, if you've never experienced this type of stuff or been around it, you don't know about the power of like counterweights and things of that
mm-mm.
nature. That it could basically get it to the point where if you have a counterweight on the other end of that pulley system that is a similar weight, you could literally just push that rock with your hand. As a matter of
Yep.
fact, he had an installation. There was a gate that he
Mm,
built that was so perfectly balanced, you literally could push it with one finger, a big stone gate, and it would
yeah.
spin around, and you could use it to walk in. So he's someone that just had this immense knowledge when it came to, at a minimum, just physics at a way where a lot of other people, and especially for someone that, we're not talking college education here or something like this,
Mm-mm.
but this is just an amazing experience. I believe the stuff that I ran into said that also his grandfather had worked in this in some way as well.
Oh, I
So
didn't see that.
yeah, so this is like a generational thing that's been passed down in terms of what these guys know when it comes to working with stone like this.
So, what knowledge was passed down? Because seriously, you look at this,
Yeah,
you see the pulleys. Yeah, you see that. You see how that works. What is the box? It doesn't contain more pulleys. You can see all of that. You're right. This is the mystery right here that everyone pegs this on is the air an electro? Did he figure out how to make an electromagnet that can lift stone?
right, right. Yeah, because
That's what
nowadays,
everyone's wondering.
yeah, think about how you would do it nowadays. You would have something that looks similar to this, but you would know that, oh, there's some kind of big, amazing motor in the top of that is, taking that weight and being able to do that. When you're looking at this, yeah, what is the explanation? Where is the counterweight? And that's where my belief in this kind of stuff um, gets gets fuzzy for me as well, because I've heard these explanations. I've seen some things. I know, like when you get on an elevator, you're not aware of this whole counterweight system that is being applied as you step onto the
Yeah.
elevator, and effectively it's making it super easy for a very small motor to be able to move that. Even your garage door basically has weight systems like this that are helping that motor, so that the motor doesn't have to be some giant diesel engine. It's a little 1 horsepower electric motor up there. But I just don't really know how that stuff works. I just know that it does. It's so,
See,
and that's where
I
it
don't
gets
know
tough.
anything. Yeah, I don't know anything about that either.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't know. I've watched different YouTube videos. I watched one guy named Larry Wandle. He created a magnet where he picked up a rock. Now, I don't know if it's legitimate or not. It looked like it. It didn't look like there was any way for him to trick it, but I'm not a science person. I'm just going to say that right off the bat. I am not. But look him up. I mean, you can find him on YouTube. You can find all kinds of people on
Yeah.
YouTube
I don't think it'd
that
be
have shown how
impossible
you
to
can lift
create.
these rocks.
Yeah. I mean, I play with magnets. I've got a stack of magnets on my desk like all the time. Like it's just a fun thing to kind of be handling. And I mean, look, this looks like a rock. I mean, you could, but I know that depending on the rocks, some of them might have ore in them. Like you might find a legitimate rock that you can use a magnet on and lift
Yes.
it up.
Now, in his video, he did show that I forget what kind of stone he said it was, but it had no, I don't think it had any, it didn't have any metallic properties to it because he showed at the very first how it wouldn't pick up until he did his thing. But yeah, and
Okay.
the oolite, it's like sandstone, and it doesn't weigh as much as you think it would from looking at it, but the numbers that I gave are still correct,
Right. Right. Yeah.
regardless in that weight. So Ed builds his castle. He's got some very interesting things going on in there. He's got rockers, stone rockers that rock themselves. That's another picture of the tripod. Just, I don't
Mhm.
see how that can move anything. But he had pools and just oh, so many beautiful things. He lived in a tower of the castle himself. And from what I've read, there's one of the beds are hung from the ceiling and all kinds of stuff like that. So you can see his knowledge of weights and levers and things of that nature. After he had the castle built for a while, he starts hearing these rumors that, oh no, they're going to put a housing district out here. And he didn't want anything like that around him. So he asked a friend of his, he had a trailer he had built himself. He asked the guy, if I load this stuff onto the trailer, will you move it to this new property that I bought that was like 10 miles away, I think it was. Guy said, sure. Wasn't every day. It took him 2 years to get it all moved. Nobody ever saw him loading the rocks. They were just on the truck when Guy got there to move it. And according to an affidavit dated April 5th, 1955, Mrs. C.U. Barnes is who did this statement. And she said he moved all of the rock objects alone from Florida City. He'd put them on a big trailer, then have my brother, Bob Biggers, come and pull them to the present location. Then he would say to Bob, go on now, for I don't want anyone to bother me while I work. So, even Bob, no idea. Once he moved the castle, he would charge people a dime or 25 cents. They'd ring the bell out front and he'd come down and he'd take them on tours and explain all the different sculptures and objects. I can only imagine how awesome that must have been.
Oh yeah, and I mean, think of the sense of pride that this guy had in the work that he was doing. That when he wanted to move, it was all going with him. He
Oh,
wasn't just
yeah.
like, "Oh, I'll just go ahead and restart out there," and like, no, 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 no. Each one of these pieces, uh, it's almost like it's an extension of him. He's not going to leave it behind,
Hmm.
so all of it goes with him.
Oh,
Um,
yeah. And
I was just say, if you could magically levitate it, though, I would go walking down the street doing that. I mean, if you're making a dime for people to come see where you've dropped the thing, how much could you charge for people to come see you levitate a giant, 5-ton rock?
I guess that would show that he's not in it for the money.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah, and I don't
John,
think
with
he was in it.
great power comes great responsibility.
Yeah. No, I don't get the sense that he was really in the money in it for the money as well. Yeah. It
Mm-mm.
doesn't seem like that's in his character. It just seems like a guy that had this crazy knowledge and wanted to work with that and made his own little universe. I mean, how cool is
Oh,
that?
he did. I mean,
Yeah.
after he moved to the new location, there he built more Oolite pieces. Um, there's a pool and a pit beside the southern wall that are the quarries that he used. So he took it just right from the land that he was on.
Yeah.
And, in putting this together, you can see here, these are some of the tools that he used. There's a big hunk of Oolite.
Yeah. Now, what's interesting is I'm curious about these because some of these do look magnetic. Taking this wire and wrapping it, coiling it like this,
Yep.
you can create an electromagnet doing that. I just don't know what he would have done with it. And these are bottles. These are bottles that have been, which you would do if you were firing electricity through this, because it would act as almost like an insulation, a type of insulation. Um,
Is it crazy?
yeah, I mean there are electrical components that I'm seeing here. I don't know. I mean, I guess in the 1920s, like, yeah, we had electricity, and I guess he would have just had it wired out to his house. But I don't know what he's doing. Like, these wouldn't be super strong electromagnets that he's working with here.
Hmm.
This is almost like you could find some guy in his garage that has stuff like this that is just
Hmm.
messing around with it. Um, yeah, I don't know.
Well, and like I said, he built on this castle his whole life, right up until his death. And you see in the castle a lot of things that you see in some of the more ancient places on Earth.
Yeah,
Stones that are fit so perfectly together, you can't push paper through them, you can't see sunlight through them. That was exactly the way this was set up. To this day, those rocks have not shifted. They're still sitting just the way he set them all that time ago. And as far as I know, the only thing that's broke down is that big gate.
right.
It broke down the first time. They brought in heavy equipment and with some difficulty took it apart. And what they found was that he had a metal rod going through the center of the stone that made up the door. It rested on a contraption that had ball bearings from an old car in it,
Yeah, he
and
had
it would just
a
spin.
truck wheel basically that was kind of down there with a big metal rod that shot up through it. But I guess they had brought some kids out from a university to try to analyze it, like when it
Mhm.
broke the first time, and they were saying just even figuring out how to do that, like you would have to, like they were using lasers and stuff to try to get the calculations right.
I know. And people are trying to recreate this with heavy equipment. They're using diamond tip drills and things like that, and it's
Yeah,
still difficult.
yeah,
Well, that door has broke down twice that I know of. I think the second time was in 2005. When it breaks down, they take the door off, they grease the bearings, and then they put it back up there. But I think they said after 2005, it still works just fine. It's just not quite as smooth as it was originally.
yeah. This might be it here. I've seen other pictures of it. It looks like this if this isn't actually it, kind of back in the right
Mhm.
here. Um,
It's almost like a secret door. It's not like a door that you open and go through. It's like a panel that you push and you
yeah,
walk through.
yeah. Admission 10 cents.
Well, he worked on this until his passing in 1951. He just walked out one day and hung up a sign at the gate that said, "Going to the hospital." He took a bus to Jackson Memorial in Miami, and 28 days later, he was gone. He died from basically kidney failure
Yeah.
and the infections that come from that. But he never passed on any of his knowledge. He never spoke to anybody about how he did these things. And I know if you go online, there are always people who are trying to debunk it and say no. Like there's this one guy, or Orville Irwin. He was a longtime friend of Ed's, and he was a described as a building contractor with a deep knowledge of construction techniques. So I guess he was a master contractor.
Okay.
He wrote a book in 1996 called Mr. Cant is Dead: The Story of the Coral Castle. And in it, he explains using photographs and drawings and schematics a lot of the ways that he says he witnessed Ed move this stuff around.
Mm.
But the thing is, and I know he didn't, you don't have to list every single thing that was in there, I know, but there were key contraptions that he didn't even address. Um, Ed had friends, he had all kinds of friends, but they all agreed, no, he never let us in on any of this. And I just really wonder if Orville didn't want to write a book.
Yeah, it's possible. It's possible. But I'll tell you what, when I get some free time, that
You gonna
might be
read
a book
it?
I check out. Like I want to understand more about this. And even though you gave me time to look into it, I didn't have enough. The research into understanding that stuff is just it's a whole different place for my brain to go. Um,
Oh, it
and th-
is.
and that's part of the reason why I want to say kind of like I phrased it before, I know that things work in this way where you can do that. I know that you could use physics to make things a lot easier than they seem,
Mhm.
but I don't know exactly how that works. So for me to be able to like, tell you that there's not something extra going on in this story, I really can't,
Mhm.
you know.
See, I'll agree. I don't have the technical knowledge to go into that. What I have looked at just kind of cemented into my mind. I honestly do think that he had a vast knowledge of electromagnetism. And with you saying he had worked with his grandfather as well,
Hmm.
yeah, this is something they passed down and perfected. There's no telling what they figured out. And I think that's the supernatural mystery right there,
Yeah.
is what did they figure out? How did they do this?
Yeah, these items in this picture, which by the way, this picture looks like it might have been messed with a little bit. Like there's elements of it where I'm like, did someone draw on top of this? But
Oh, really?
there's nothing that I'm seeing here that is anything but mechanical. Like I'm not
Hmm.
even seeing anything here that I would say is electrical. This picture is way more interesting because these are clearly electrical parts. Like these are wire couplings I mean, it's a switch. That's an electrical switch
Hmm.
down there. These terminals, these are simple electromagnets. I just don't know that they had to do with the construction process in that way. I don't
What
know.
else would he
It's hard to
use them
tell.
for?
I don't. That's like I'm telling you. I would just play around with things like this when I was younger. Like I would
I was
take
always scared
wire.
too. I didn't want to get shocked too bad.
Yeah, no, I would take wire and a screwdriver. I would make electromagnets. I would take my walkie-talkies apart and hook them up to different power adapters for like my train set and all that stuff, and like blow the
Yeah.
resistor caps off of them. And some people are just wired in that way that they want to see how things work and they get into it. And it looks like
Mhm.
it because these are all just a bunch of pieces, things that have been they're parts of something else, whatever it was. But yeah, these
Uh,
electromagnets, they wouldn't be building enough energy to do anything based on my limited but somewhat reasonable experience.
See, the only conclusion that I could come to here, because if Ed was able to do these things with knowledge that the rest of us don't have, they have everything right there. Can they not figure this out? Is it a case of it's all a big hoax? He had help and no one knows about it. Or we don't understand what he did here, but this is what he left. Because I don't think the tripods are around anymore. That would be the first thing everyone would want is to look in that box, see what that thing is. And I don't think those exist anymore, but I don't know what happened to him either. When he passed away, he had no will. It went to his next relative, which was his nephew, and his nephew wasn't in good health either. So he sold the castle, and I think it was sold a second time. And the people who bought it the second time are the ones who still own it today.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's basically
But
been an attraction since. And
it is.
some people in the chat are saying that I don't think they even charge admission. Is that what they're saying?
See, I mean,
Yeah.
and to top it all off, there are no chisel marks on anything. Now, I realize this rock is porous and it's probably going to be hard to see some tool marks, but he carved chairs and everything else. He had a lot of astrological signs, moons, stars, things like that.
Yeah.
I mean, how did he cut those out? How did he shape them, but leave
Yeah. I
no
mean, this
evidence
has
of it?
been, I don't even know how you would get this type of finish on this. I mean, I guess you just grind this sucker down until, but if it's so porous, I don't know. I'm almost thinking maybe that this was concrete put on top of it or something.
That's what you would think. Yeah.
Yeah. Hmm.
It's baffling. And I think it's a huge mystery. I do think I mean, how did he do this, people? There were no cranes or anything like that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he does have a crane. This is effectively a crane. It's just how does it work is really a big question.
No, because it doesn't look like it's the complete crane. I mean, I can see how you can lift something with it, but not move it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
some of those are set so high on top of each other.
Especially
One
one man
article that I read
moving
said
this.
that the stones are bigger and heavier than the ones used in Egypt.
Hmm. Yeah. Crazy. Well, we put it to the audience. Is there anything else that you have to share about it?
No, no,
Okay.
that was it. That was it. I'm just saying. I think he knew things we didn't.
He definitely knew things that we didn't. I
Mhm.
completely agree with that. That is more than fair. It's just a question of was it supernatural or not? And with the live audience here, 79% say no.
That's too
So
bad.
I'm honestly like I'm uncomfortable. I wouldn't. I honestly I couldn't even answer this one because I don't feel I would need to do more research. I would need like another week, maybe two. Maybe I would need to read
Yeah.
that book and then do a bunch of research on top of it. It's got me interested in um, like is there little model kits that you can build that would show you the dynamics of how this works or something like that? I don't know. Like I'm gonna start cracking out a bunch of Legos and see if I can get something going with this. It's
Hmm.
yeah, it's weird. It's really really weird. And either way, it's a very sweet story. I mean, just the fact that it kind of started from a broken heart,
Hmm.
led to him finding a passion like this and something that obviously he was extremely passionate about and he carried on doing, made something beautiful, and he was able to share that with other people. It's a good story all the way around. So,
It is. It
yeah.
is. And I feel it's supernatural, by the way.
Well, I'm
But I
not going
always
to
do.
make you watch the video because, like I said, I'm not 100% content myself on this. But
Mhm.
um, Either way, it was great to hear. So thank you so much, Christy, for sharing this
Mhm.
with us. Thank you guys for coming along for the ride. Big thank you to our live audience, and please join us again on the next episode. We'll catch you on the other side